So we're going to jump right into it. Turn to 1 Kings chapter 18, verse 17. We're going to jump right into it. I want everybody, 1 Kings chapter 18, verse 17. That's on page 300 in the Bibles on the pew rack. 1 Kings. And tonight we're going to be beginning a new series, and it's going to be on Elisha with an S. Elisha. Now, most of our first lesson leading up will be about his calling. And do you guys know that exactly 2 years from the day we had our lesson on Elijah with the J when he went against the prophets of Baal? Do you guys remember that lesson? That was exactly 2 years ago to the day. So when I'm talking about most of the lesson, it will be about him because we're going to be starting back. Now listen, I want your attention. We're going to be talking about him because Elisha, when I do this, that's with an S, S-H. And I'm not going to do it with Elijah, but Elisha, I'll do that so you'll know the difference. And this will be the only lesson I have to do that on because this lesson is going to bridge the gap from who Elijah was to who Elisha, who's going to take his place, is. And you're thinking, I could easily go into Elisha. I could easily go into him right now and start doing a lesson on him. I'm like, yeah, he replaced some prophet. You know, the prophet went, he put his cloak on him, and then he started following him. And we could easily start doing that. But I want you to know who he's replacing, what he's stepping into, the severity, the importance of what he does. Because you can see when you're following someone and when they pass it to you, you want to know what you're picking up. And we're going to find out the heaviness of what he's picking up. But in our lesson a few years ago, we learned about him. And it was this epic showdown between Elijah and the prophets of Baal. Who's heard of the prophets of Baal? Is the prophets of Baal good or bad? Bad. Very bad. All right? So we have that going on. And on the GroupMe app, I put the YouTube link on it. And if you're not on our GroupMe app, the Rooted Youth Ministry one, tell me or let one of your friends know who's on it. They can invite you and put it on it. You click on that link and it'll go back to the lesson we had 2 years ago, and it'll show it just like I'm doing it here right now for the guys who wasn't in youth or just now started coming to youth. But we're going to go ahead and look at 1 Kings chapter 18, verse 17. And we'll briefly read about the battle that's in here, so we're all on the same page when we start talking about Elisha. So is everyone there? Yes, 1 Kings chapter 18, verse 17. Everybody's there. I'm going to give you guys a little backdrop on who the king of Israel is right now before we start reading. The king of Israel right now. You're looking at 1 Kings chapter 18. The king in this chapter is King Ahab. He was not a good king. And the thing is, he's the king of Israel, God's chosen people. He is an evil and wicked king. And he married who? Does anybody know? Jezebel. He married a woman named Jezebel. She worshiped Baal, and so he started worshiping Baal. Who should he be worshiping as the king of Israel? God, Yahweh, the one and true God. But yet he's worshiping a false idol. And God hates that very, very much. You say, God doesn't hate. He hates sin. Here we go. It says right here. Listen to what? Just look at me for a second. Look up here. Look at the screens. Because y'all ain't going to be able to turn there fast enough. Look up here. Look at what Scripture says about King Ahab before we start. Everybody look up here. It says in 1 Kings chapter 16, verses 30 through 33. Is that it? Yeah, I have it. Okay, good. It says, and Ahab, the son of Omri, did evil in the sight of the Lord more than all who were before him. And as if it had been a light thing for him to walk in the sins of Jeroboam, the son of Nebat, he took for his wife Jezebel, the daughter of Ethbaal, king of the Sidonians, and went and served Baal and worshipped him. He erected an altar for Baal in the house of Baal, which he built in Samaria. And Ahab made an Asherah. There's Asherah poles. That's another false idol that you can worship. So he went and he made that. Ahab did more. Listen, this is it. Listen to this last line. Ahab did more to provoke the Lord, the God of Israel, to anger than all the kings of Israel who were before him. There's a lot of kings before him. But he did more to anger the Lord, to provoke his anger than any kings before him. That's how evil of a man he had become. So King Ahab, he walked in evil. He built altars to false gods. He served and worshiped Baal. which is terrible in and of itself, and married a woman who also worshiped Baal. The king of Israel, he wasn't worshiping the one true and living God who we worship here tonight. He was worshiping a false god. Now, in that lesson 2 years ago, I said, worshiping a false idol. Back then, it would be made of wood, of stone, maybe of gold of some sort, like the golden calf. So it's some inanimate object. Can't do anything, no breath, no life in it whatsoever. And they worship it. And what did I say 2 years ago? I said, can this bring rain? Can this forgive my sins? Can this heal me? So my point back then, I'm just going to add to my point back then. I'm not changing it. You're right, that can't do a thing for me. But they would make things and they would worship this as a god, that it's going to bring these things. There is something to it. The spirit behind it that they're worshiping. When you're worshiping, you're not really worshiping this. You're worshiping the spirits behind it. And if it's not God, whose spirit is it? The devil's, Satan's. I've looked up images of Baal. I've looked up images of other false gods, and it looks evil. It looks like something that's scary. If there wasn't an evil spirit behind it, why would it look like that? Why would it feel like that? Because there's an evilness behind it. You're right, that right there can't do anything. But they're worshiping something. And behind that something, there's a spirit behind it. So you're either worshiping God or you're worshiping the devil. You're either worshiping God or Baal. So when you're worshiping this false idol, Baal, who are you really worshiping? Satan. You're worshiping the devil when they do that. The king of Israel, the king, not some guy, the king of Israel was worshiping who? The devil. Because he's worshiping Baal, a.k.a. Satan. Because those are the spirits, the evilness behind it. And all the other little Asherah poles and everything else is just demonic forces. Because it's not angelic forces, well, angelic in a bad way, it's not godly. Think of all the religions around the world. Think of all the false gods. Buddhism, millions. Do you think any of those millions are actually godly? Or are they all demonic? Tell me, which one is it? It can only be one of the two. Demonic, because it's not of God. Or you have other religions that sell you a fake, false Jesus. They'll use his name in it, but it's not the real Jesus in Scripture, like Mormons or Jehovah's Witnesses. That is a false idol, a false image of Jesus. So they're not worshiping Jesus. Who are they worshiping? That's a hard one to swallow, but it's true. It's Satan. That's exactly it. If you're not worshiping God, Jesus, the real God of Scripture, it's not just, your God, my God's my God. And they're all a God. No, that's not it at all. You're worshiping a fallen angel with an evil spirit. And that's all these other religions. So the same thing that King Ahab did way back then that was so evil is still happening today. It looks a little bit different. It's a little more acceptable than it was back then. That and so many more religions still exist today. Anything false is of the devil, whether that be back in King Ahab's day or here in 2026. So the worship of Baal became widespread during King Ahab's reign. And I was going to go into some detail about what they did, how they worshiped Baal, but I can't. If it was an adults class, I would. We would go into it a little bit. But it's too graphic, it's too disturbing. It's pretty bad. It is true evil about what they do. I'm honestly not going to mention it. But just trust me, it's bad. In Matthew 12:27, Jesus says that, or he calls Satan Beelzebub, right here. And if I cast out demons by Beelzebub, by whom do your sons cast them out? Therefore, they will be your judges. So he's calling Satan Beelzebub. Jesus himself is saying this in Matthew, which links the devil to Baal back in 1st and 2nd Kings when we see that. Mainly 2nd Kings when he talks about it. So does anybody know about Pastor Dominguez Nelson? You're like, who is that? Have y'all heard of gotquestions.com? He's the one that's over that. He's over Bible Munch and all that, who we like to go in and look at the questions. Well, he says this about Baal. He says, the worship of Baal in the Old Testament was nothing more then demons masquerading as gods, and all idolatry is ultimately devil worship. If you're worshiping Baal and all the false gods, do you agree with him that it is all devil worship? Because it's not godly worship. Listen to what the Apostle Paul says in 1 Corinthians 10:20 about sacrificing anything or anyone in the name other than God. It says, "No, I imply that what pagans sacrifice, they offer to who? To who? They offer to demons and not to God. Not to God. I do not want you to be participants with demons." So when you're worshiping, when you're listening to that music in your car, and you're singing it with everything you've got, and you're super into it, and it's cussing like crazy and everything else, who do you think you're giving praise to in that moment? Is it a good spirit? No. You do not offer that to demons. You offer your praise, your worship to God, your life. You should be living worship every day you get up. King Ahab was not doing that. So you have Elijah, God's prophet, and you have Ahab, the wicked, evil king. Let's get into the nice lesson starting in 1 Kings chapter 18, verse 17. Now remember, the series is about Elisha, with an S, but we're going to start in by looking at Elijah before we begin. So let's look at it. Go on chapter 18, verse 17. We're just going to read through verse 19. It says, "When Ahab saw Elijah, Ahab said to him, 'Is it you troubler of Israel?' And he answered, 'I have not troubled Israel, but you have, and your father's house, because you have abandoned the commandments of the Lord and followed the Baals. Now therefore send and gather all Israel to me at Mount Carmel, and the 450 prophets of Baal and the 400 prophets of Asherah who eat at Jezebel's table.'" So false idol worship was so bad that they had 450 prophets of Baal and 400 prophets of Asherah. We'll say that's close to 850. This sanctuary at capacity is about 350. I know we could squeeze 50 more in, so we'll just put it at 400. It'd be this 2 times over. That's how many false prophets. Imagine every person in here is a false prophet. And the king of Israel is okay with it. Not only okay with it with the stamp of approval, he worships with them. So it'd be like having the sanctuary packed twice over. Now, so they have almost 850 false prophets going to where? Where are they going? Mount Carmel, that's where they're going. Who else is going? Who else is going other than Elijah? Elisha won't be there. Well, he might be, considering who I'm going for. It's a lot of people. That's a hint. Israel. What does it say there? All of Israel. Now, does every single person that lives in Israel go? Probably not. We don't know. But it's easy to say that when it says, "and gather all Israel," we can safely assume that's probably hundreds of thousands of people, if not millions of people. Imagine that. You have 850 false prophets. You have millions of Israelites who's under an evil king and probably is doing the same thing he's doing. So you have millions of people, hundreds of false prophets, and one man of God. When you go into a situation at school and you feel alone, or you're in a locker room or wherever you're at your friend's house and you're the only Christian and you don't want to act like that or say no or walk away because it's weird, imagine Elijah in this moment. One man. And not only does he act like a godly man, he says, "You know what? Bring all those hundreds of prophets to Mount Carmel where I'm going. And by the way, bring all of Israel with you. And we're going to meet up there because we're about to have a showdown." That's me paraphrasing, but that's exactly what he does. He doesn't just act godly and walk away from the bad situation. He calls them out on it. And he wants to find out who the true God is, the real God. Baal or Yahweh? Which one? That's what he wants them to know. Tony Evans, he says this. These numbers, and this is Tony Evans, not me right here. These numbers indicate the extent to which Jezebel had plunged Israel into gross idolatry. It was time for a face-off. King Ahab had integrated idolatry into a system that was supposed to be run on God's agenda because the Israelites were his people. I'm going to break it down so I don't read the whole thing, but there's two kingdoms here at war. You have God's kingdom and you have the demonic Satan's kingdom over here. You have Elijah, one man, God's man. You have millions of people over here. These are your two kingdoms. Most people think the one with the most people wins, right? Not when you're serving the true God. Now let's read verses 20 through 40. We're going to read what happens. It says, "So Ahab sent to all the people of Israel and gathered the prophets together at Mount Carmel. And Elijah came near to all the people and said, 'How long will you go limping between two different opinions? If the Lord is God, follow him. But if Baal, then follow him.'" Basically, he's saying, make up your mind. Who are you going to follow? Baal? If so, go follow him. Stop limping between the two. I'm a child of God. I'm an Israelite, but I'm going to stay over here. How many of you guys do that? I'm a child of God. I'm a Christian, but yet you're stepping in places you shouldn't be in. Pick one of the two. You can't be both. And he's telling them, quit limping between the two. Either worship God, Yahweh, or go and worship Baal if he's the true king. But stop going between the two. Then he goes on to say after that, after he talks about them limping between the two, "And the people did not answer him a word." That many people and nobody says a thing. Then Elijah said to the people, even I only am left a prophet of the Lord. He said, pretty much saying, I'm by myself in this thing. But Baal's prophets are 450 men. Let 2 bulls be given to us, and let them choose 1 bull for themselves, cut it into pieces, and lay it on the wood, but put no fire to it. And I will prepare the other bull and lay it on the wood, and put no fire to it. And you call upon the name of your God, and I will call upon the name of my God, or of my Lord, and the God who answers by fire, he is God. And the people answered, it is well spoken, meaning, okay, let's do this. That's what the people are saying. Then Elijah said to the prophets of Baal, choose for yourselves 1 bull and prepare it first, for you are many, and call upon the name of your God, but put no fire to it. So he's telling them, you go first. There's a whole lot of you guys. It won't take you very long to make this. Just get it going, get it on the altar, and let's kick this off. Since you have the most, you go first. And they took the bull that was given to them, and they prepared it, and called upon the name of Baal from morning until noon. Hours, at least 4 hours at the very least, possibly 6 hours this is going on. From morning until noon, saying, O Baal, answer us. But there was no voice, and no one answered. And they limped around the altar that they had made. And at noon, Elijah mocked them. So they've been doing this for hours on hours. Elijah decides he's going to have a little fun, so he starts mocking them. He says, cry aloud, for he is God. He is a God. Notice that's a small case G. The only one who deserves a capital G is the only true God. He is a God. Either he is musing, meaning he's sitting here watching, he's watching, or he's relieving himself, meaning, or he could be going to the bathroom, I don't know, or he's on a journey, or perhaps he's asleep and must be awakened. So he's just poking them. He's just poking at them right now, making fun of them. And they cried aloud and cut themselves after their custom with swords and lances until the blood gushed out upon them. So now you've been sitting here for hours. I can imagine they're pouring sweat and nothing's happening. They're getting humiliated. Nothing is happening. This God who everybody, millions of people who worship, isn't showing up. So they go back to what is customary in that religion. They start cutting themselves. And it didn't say that it was a little bit bleeding. What did it say? It was gushing out. There's lots of blood happening right now. So it's just, to me, I picture pandemonium. I picture madness, craziness from them worshiping this God. 1 Corinthians, Paul says, our God is not a God of confusion. I'm sure that scene, it looked like what? Confusing. It looked crazy. It looked chaotic. But you have God's man standing there, I'm sure, calm. Because our God's not a God of confusion. They're over there doing crazy stuff, trying to get their God to answer their call. Let's keep reading. And they cried aloud and cut themselves and gushed out upon them. And as midday passed, They raved on until the time of the offering of oblation, but there was no voice. No one answered. No one paid attention. Then Elijah said to all the people, "Come near me." And all the people came to him. Millions of people. Okay, they've had their shot. They've been out here almost all day doing this. Come to me. So everybody comes over there to where he's at. Remember, by fire. They're sitting there with the altar, this bull that's been chopped up into pieces sitting on an altar. So he's about to make his own. And not only does he sit there and call down for fire, but he's about to soak it all with water. You probably think he's crazy. Let's read about it. He says, and the people came near to him and repaired the altar of the Lord that had been thrown down. What a shame. Elijah took 12 stones according to the number of the tribes of the sons of Jacob, to whom the word of the Lord saying, Israel shall be your name. And with the stones he built an altar in the name of the Lord. Everything he's doing right now is what? In the name of the Lord. Everything he's doing is everything you do in the name of the Lord. If not, why? So he stands up. He's doing everything in the name of the Lord. And he made a trench. They didn't do that. Why is he making a trench for? He's got this altar. They built it. They put all the stuff on it. Then they start making this trench. A trench is when you dig out the earth and make a trench. And so they're digging it out. They dig a trench all the way around this thing. And then about the altar, and he made a trench about the altar as great as would contain 2 seahs of seed. And that's about 7 liters. And he put the wood in order and cut the bull in pieces, and he laid it on the wood. And he said, fill 4 jars of water and pour it on the burnt offering and on the wood. So they get 4 jars, and they're dumping it on everything. They're dumping the 4 jars of water. And what does it say after they do that? It says, and he did. Then they do it a second time, so they do it again. And then they did it a second time, and he said, do it a third time. So now you're up to how many jars, mathematicians? 12 jars. Now you're up to 12 jars of water. That's a lot of water. And it says, and the water ran around the altar, and the trench was also filled with water. They had put so much water on this thing that it had ran off into the trench and filled it up as well. So he's just showing off because they're thinking, well, he's about to call down fire, and here he is soaking everything. Well, our God isn't just going to give a little spark, a little flint. Not our God. And at the time of the offering of oblation, Elijah the prophet came near and said, O Lord, God of Abraham, Isaac, and Israel, let it be known this day that you are God in Israel, and that I am your servant, and that I have done all things at your word. Answer me, O Lord, answer me, that this people may know that you, O Lord, are God, and that you have turned their hearts back. So he's begging. He wants their hearts to be turned back to him. All of the Israelites wants to be turned back to God. You're a Christian, God wants your heart turned back to him, and he'll do anything to do it. Turn back to God if your hearts have been turned away from him. It says, then the fire of the Lord fell and consumed the burnt offering, and the wood and the stones and the dust, and licked up the water that was in the trench. And when all the people saw it, they fell on their faces and said, the Lord, he is God. The Lord, he is God. Why? Remember earlier what question or what statement was he making? Either pick Yahweh, the Lord God, or you pick Baal. Stop limping between the two. Pick one. Who did they just pick? Who did they just say God is? The Lord. They said the Lord, he is God. The Lord, he is God. They're professing it. They're turning back to God. They've seen his power. And then after that it says, and Elijah said to them, seize the prophets of Baal. Now they've turned back to God. They're truly God's people now. He's saying, go get them. Get the prophets of Baal. And let not one of them escape. And they seized them. And Elijah brought them down to the brook of Kishon and slaughtered them there. They slaughtered every false prophet, cleansing the land of the evil that had been brought in by who? Who's the gatekeeper of Israel right now? The king. Who says what happens and what doesn't happen? The king. You notice it didn't say anything about the king being killed. The king was alive. The king is one of God's people. Now, Elijah, he just went on what you guys experience when you go to youth camp, when you go on a mission trip, when you go out somewhere and you see a big movement of God, you have a mountaintop experience, a spiritual high, if you will. You guys know what I'm talking about? I know some of you know what I'm talking about because I've seen you go through it. He just had that moment. One man, one, against millions of people, calling on God, and he answered. He answered. You can't get higher than that because you've seen God in amazing ways. Mountaintop experience. But with every mountaintop experience, there's going to be a valley. There's seasons in life. There are good seasons, seasons where everything's going great, but the seasons change. Just like seasons we have now, winter, summer, fall, spring. We have different seasons. Well, there's seasons of life. There's awesome times, and then there's times that are hard, that it's not going to be fun. And Elijah just got on a mountaintop experience. What do you think's about to happen? He's about to hit the valley. That's exactly what's about to happen. Let's read. Hold on, before we read, I got one thing before we start reading. I put, and then the one true king, we still serve today and here tonight to worship and praise, he shows up with 10 prayers. Elijah had to pray 10 times. Elijah had to pray 20 times. Somebody correct me. He prayed once, and God showed up. One time, one prayer of his servant, and he torches that whole offering, enough to where it just dries up all the ground and the trenches around it. One prayer. Verse 38, then the fire of the Lord fell and consumed the burnt offering and the wood and the stones and the dust, consumed everything, and it licked up the water that was in the trench. The false prophets, they were screaming, they were cutting themselves over and over. This just wild stuff that they're doing to get their God to answer, but nothing happened after hours and hours. Then the people of Israel, they see it, and they start to worship Baal. The people see that, and they worship the Asherah poles. Who they worship? God. Yahweh. The real God. As Christians, we have spiritual highs, just like Elijah did. Seasons change. Let's go ahead and read about his season changing right here. He's about to go into the valley. Let's read first, starting in verse 41. It says, Elijah said to Ahab. Now, Ahab's still alive. Remember, he's a wicked king. He's an evil king, but he's God's king. So he's still alive. And Elijah said to Ahab, go up and eat. Go up, eat and drink, for there is a sound of rushing rain. So he's giving him a command to a king. He's telling him what to do. And you're about to see that Ahab, the king, doesn't even dare say anything back to Elijah. Why? Because he just saw what Elijah is capable of, what God is capable of, whose man he belongs to. So he does exactly what Elijah tells him to do. And remember that for later. Keep that in mind. Elijah does what Ahab asks. And he says, so Ahab went up to eat and drink. And Elijah went up to the Mount Carmel. And he bowed himself down to the earth and put his face between his knees. And he said to his servant, this is God talking to him, go up now, look toward the sea. So Elijah's listening to God. God's telling him, go now, look up toward the sea. And he went up and he looked again. There is nothing, he said. So Elijah's telling God, there's nothing up there. God says, go again. 7 times. And at the 7th time, he said, behold, a little cloud like a man's hand is rising from the sea. And he said, go up and say to Ahab, prepare your chariot and go down lest the rain stop you. So I'm just going to skip ahead in my notes and tell you right now, at this moment, there's been famine, there's been drought for a very long time. And now that the evil's been cleansed out of the land and it's just God and God's people, now I'm going to bring the rain. Now the crops are about to grow. Baal didn't cause it, God did. Yahweh did. He's the one that gets the credit for it. So they see the cloud coming of rain. What does he tell Ahab? Go get in a chariot, get back to Jezreel before the rain hits, because it's going to be a lot. Keep that in mind. Chariot. He has horses. He's going full speed back to Jezreel. Elijah's staying behind. He's still staying there. So that's where we're at. Let's keep reading. And in a little while, the heavens grew black with clouds and wind, and there was a great rain. And Ahab rode, he's in a chariot with horses, and went to Jezreel. And the hand of the Lord was on Elijah, and he gathered up his garment and ran before Ahab to the entrance of Jezreel. Tony Evans says something, he brought it to my attention. Did you catch that? Elijah got to Jezreel before Ahab did. Ahab's he rode with horses in a what? A chariot. So he supernaturally somehow got faster than Ahab got there. He beat Ahab to Jezreel. Sorry, I lost my place. So up until the moment of the showdown that we just witnessed, there had been famine and drought, but now there's rain coming. And he tells Ahab to hurry home so he won't be caught up in it. And here's what Tony Evans says. This is the part where I noticed. It says, he even received the bonus blessing of supernatural strength, which enabled him to outrun Ahab's chariot to Jezreel, without a doubt, with the power of the Lord. He was on a spiritual mountaintop. We're talking about that. He was on a spiritual mountaintop, but now we're talking about that valley. So now we're getting into the actual valley of it. So he's up here. He's telling Ahab what to do. Ahab listens. He goes back, and now they're all up there together. Before we move on to chapter 19, I want to point out something really quick. And I'm not going to take credit for this. Pastor Josh, he's the one that brought this to my attention. And he mentioned it in passing, but I really got to chewing on it. And I thought, that's good. That's really good. So before we move on, I want to point out something really quick. After the showdown that Ahab actually listens to what Elijah is telling him, and he seems somewhat submissive. Okay, yeah, I'll go. And he goes. He does exactly what Elijah's telling him. Then King Ahab, who does he get back to? Not where. He's in Jezreel. Who does he go back to? Jezebel. He goes back to her. Keep that in mind. He gets back to her, and the whole demeanor of King Ahab changes. He reverts right back to how he was. He went back to being a wicked king. Be careful who you hang out with. That's on your notes. If you want to write that in there, write it down. It's one of the things that I had for one of my points. Be careful who you hang out with. The second he got back, he started acting just like he used to act. Why? Because of the company he kept. Because who he was married to. Be careful who you hang out with. You know what the Apostle Paul says in 1 Corinthians 15:33? Check this out. Read this. Do not be deceived. What does it say? Everybody say it. Bad company ruins good morals. That's exactly point blank, end of the sentence. Do not be deceived. Bad company ruins good morals. That's what happened to Ahab. He watched God move. He saw God's people turn back to him. He listens to what God's prophet has to say, gets back to bad company. And Jezebel was bad company, and it ruined his good morals. Who are you dating right now? Who's your friend circle? What's that look like? When you leave here and you go back to him, does it ruin your good morals? Child of God, does it? Bad company ruins good morals. Be careful who you hang out with. Now let's read what happens once King Ahab gets back to Jezreel and back to the wicked wife, Jezebel. Verse 1 in chapter 19. It says, Ahab told Jezebel all that Elijah had done and how he had killed all the prophets with the sword. So he told his wife everything that happened that day. Then Jezebel sent a messenger to Elijah saying, so may the gods do to me and more also if I do not make your life as the life of one of them by this time tomorrow. Basically, she sent someone to Elijah saying, I have Bible markers. I got a daily Bible plan. And you're supposed to read 10 chapters a day. And yeah, I got caught, yeah. Oh no, y'all caught me. And there's more of them in there, so if they start falling out, let me know. Where was I at? I was so into what I was saying. Oh man. When I'm on a roll and I stop, everything stops in my mind. I gotta gear back. Hold on, guys, sorry. Okay, yes. So what happened was Jezebel, basically what she was doing, she sent a guy to go tell Elijah that I'm going to do to you what you did to my prophets. That's basically what she was saying. And she said, and if I don't, may God do that to me, or a God or the God, do that to me. It says, then he was brave. Then he stood in defiance. Then he was courageous. What does he say? What's it say? It says he was afraid. And he arose and ran for his life and came to Beersheba, which belongs to Judah, and left his servant there. But he himself went a day's journey into the wilderness and came and sat under a broom tree. So he ran. Oh, he's scared. He's running now. And he asked that he might die, saying, "It is enough. O Lord, take away my life, for I am no better than my fathers." And he lay down and slept under a broom tree. And behold, an angel touched him and said to him, "Arise and eat." And he looked, and behold, there at his head a cake baked on hot stones and a jar of water. And he ate and drank and lay down again. And the angel of the Lord came a second time and touched him and said, "Arise and eat, for the journey is too great for you." And he arose and ate and drank and went in the strength of that 40 days and 40 nights to Horeb, the Mount of God. So Elijah, he had just stood up to hundreds of prophets, possibly millions. He went from being extremely courageous, extremely resilient, to letting an evil woman terrify him to death. Think about it. He's standing out there in front of millions of people saying, "Pick who your God is." They could have killed him, burnt him alive right then and there. Super courageous, standing firm. Then he gets back off the mountaintop experience, gets down in the valley. An evil woman married to the king says, "I'm going to kill you. And if I don't, let the same thing happen to me." That's it. One person. It terrifies him. He runs. He hides, saying, "God, take me now. I can't do this anymore." How do you go from being that firm in your faith to "I can't do this anymore. I'm so weak. I can't take another breath. Take me now." That's the valley I'm talking about. It's not always going to be a great season. There are ups and downs all through life. So when you're in a down, you're in a valley, remember, it's nothing new. It happened to God's men and women. It'll happen to you. It'll happen to me if you're serving him long enough. You know, Jesus' disciple, Peter, it makes me think of him. What did he do in the Garden of Gethsemane? He cut a guy's ear off. He went and lopped it off. Why? To help Jesus, right? He's being brave. I mean, what do we say? There's hundreds of soldiers, right, in the garden. He goes up, he lops the dude's ear off. That's pretty courageous because they could have killed him right then and there. So imagine that, hundreds of people in the Garden of Gethsemane. Peter lops his ear off. He's ready to throw down. Jesus says, "No, I'm not going to go into all that." What happens hours, not days, hours later, when they're out there by a fire, while Jesus is in there getting in this fake court, he denies Jesus 3 times. Was it some big Roman came up to him and said, "It was you"? Who was it? It was a servant girl. So he's sitting there in front of hundreds of Roman soldiers, cuts a dude's ear off, and then hours later, he denies who Jesus even is. Highs and lows. We all experience it. It'd be like me all right, and then when, hold on one second, sorry. Let's go ahead and read for time. Let's read verses 19 through 18. Let's read that chunk really quick. So he came to a cave and lodged in it. So he's still kind of running. He found a cave. He went in it. And behold, the word of the Lord came to him, and he said, "What are you doing here, Elijah?" He said, "I've been very jealous for the Lord of hosts, for the people of Israel have forsaken your covenant, thrown down your altars, and killed your prophets with the sword, and even I only am left. And they seek my life to take it away." Now, when he's telling them, when God's asking him, what he say? God knows all the answers. He says, "What are you doing here, Elijah?" He's not asking him what he's actually doing. Well, I'm sitting. I mean, that's what I'm doing. That's not what he's talking about. It'd be like if I told Caleb, "Go to Texarkana and minister there," and I find him in San Antonio. "What are you doing here?" "You're supposed to be in Texarkana." That's why he's asking him. You're supposed to be somewhere else. Why are you out here? God already knows the answer. He's saying, all these things I've done for you, and they're trying to kill me for it. That's why I'm here. That's basically what he's saying. And he said, "Go out and stand on the mount before the Lord, and behold, the Lord passed by, and a great and strong wind tore through the mountains and broke in pieces the rocks before the Lord. But the Lord was not in the wind, and after the wind an earthquake. But the Lord was not in the earthquake, and after the earthquake a fire. But the Lord was not in the fire, and after the fire the sound of a low whisper." He was showing Elijah his power, had not diminished. What I did on Mount Carmel, I'm still capable of. He wasn't in it. He was the one causing it. I can do these things. He's showing him so he can not be scared anymore. I've got you. Get up. I need you right now. And when Elijah heard it, he does it all over again. He wraps his face in his cloak. He went out to the entrance of the cave, and he stood there, and there came a voice to him and said, "What are you doing here, Elijah?" It's the same thing like when I do Sawyer, and I ask him 3 times, "What are you doing, son?" And then you walk off, you come back, he's still there, not doing what you told him to do. "What are you doing, son?" That's what he's doing with Elijah. He comes back, "What are you doing?" And he gives him the same excuse. He says, "I have been very jealous for the Lord of hosts, for the people of Israel has forsaken your covenant, thrown down your altars, and killed your prophets with the sword, and I, even I, am left, and they seek my life to take it away." And the Lord said to him, "Go." He's not questioning him anymore. "What are you doing, Elijah? What are you doing?" He gives him a command. He says, "Go." He says, "Go return your way to the wilderness of Damascus. And when you arrive, you shall anoint Hazael to be the king over Syria." So guess who's about to not be king anymore? Ahab. He's about to not be king anymore. "And Jehu, the son of Nimshi, you shall anoint to be king over Israel. And Elisha, the son of Shaphat of Abel Maholah, you shall anoint the prophet in your place." Elisha. That's where he starts to come into the picture. So you're about to anoint a king. You're about to anoint a new prophet. The new prophet's name will be Elisha. "And the one who escapes from the sword of Hazael shall Jehu put to death. And the one who escapes the sword of Jehu shall Elisha put to death. Yet I will leave 7,000 in Israel, all the knees that have not bowed to Baal, and every mouth that has not kissed him." Now you notice when you look back up here, Hazael will be over Syria. It's divided into 2 kingdoms. Then you have who to be the king over the Israelites? Who's going to be the king over them? It says it right here. "And Jehu, the son of Nimshi, you shall anoint to be king over Israel." So you have the kings. And then you have a new prophet coming in. So it says right here, after that it says, "Yet I will leave 7,000 in Israel, and all knees," I already read that to you, sorry, "and every mouth that has not kissed him." So it's talking about the people who haven't worshiped Baal at all. Let me get down here where I'm at. So I got to skip a bunch of stuff. I'm sorry. So God's basically asking Elijah why he's in Horeb. We already went through that. He's running in fear. Let's go ahead and skip down to Elisha. I don't have time, so we're just going to skip right down to it because this is the good stuff. This is why we're here. So that's the intro to the intro. Now we're about to find out who Elisha is, how he's called. We know what he's stepping into now, right? We know what kind of stuff he's walking into. Let's read the last paragraph of chapter 19, the call of Elisha. "So he departed from there and found Elisha, the son of Shaphat, who was plowing with 12 yoke of oxen in front of him, and he was with the 12th. Elijah passed by him and cast his cloak upon him." So he walks by, he puts his cloak on Elisha. That is symbolic of passing on his prophetic power. That is symbolic of, you're next in line to take my place. Elisha knew this. So when he does that, he says, "And he left the oxen and ran after Elijah and said, 'Let me kiss my father and mother, and then I will follow you.' And he said to him, 'Go back, for what have I done to you?' And he returned from following him and took the yoke of oxen and sacrificed them and boiled their flesh with the yokes of the oxen and gave it to the people, and they ate. Then he arose and went after Elijah and assisted him." Notice there, what did he do? He burned. Will you go ahead and go down to the NLT version of verse 21? So what he says in the NLT version, it should be towards the bottom. Yeah, that's it. So it says, "So Elisha returned to his oxen and slaughtered them." So all of his animals, his income, what he has for a living, what does he do? Does he save a few? He slaughters them. Then he uses the wood from his equipment that he works with, his plow. He uses it to do what? To cook them, to feed to everybody else. So he burned up everything that he did, that he used for his livelihood, for his work. So he can't go back to it now. I was telling Bo, was you Bo about the sawmill? So my family owns sawmills. It'd be like if we went down there and said, "Know what? God's called me. I'm going to burn everything in our industry to the ground, and it's cold outside, so we can all use it to warm up for the day." And then we don't have anything to do. We don't have it to come back to anymore. So it's the same thing. He takes his cows, he slaughters them, he feeds people with it, he burns all of his equipment to follow Jesus. Because now he has no way back. And that's why I'm calling this Burn the Ships, because that makes me think of someone. It makes me think of Hernan Cortez. He came over to South America. I want to read you what a guy wrote about it. And then we're done. He had nothing left to do but follow God's plan. Listen to what Pastor Mark Batterson, who preaches at a church in Washington, D.C., says about it. And this is very interesting. I promise you guys are going to like this. On February 19th, 1519, the Spanish explorer Hernan Cortez set sail for Mexico with an entourage of 11 ships, 13 horses, 110 sailors, and 553 soldiers. So only 553 of them actually know how to fight. The indigenous population, which was made of Aztecs, which are a very ferocious people, they can fight very well, and they're known for it. So upon the arrival, was approximately 5 million when they got here. That's a lot. So from a purely mathematical standpoint, the odds were stacked against them 541 to 1. 7,451 to 1. That would be like me having to kill 7,451 Aztecs to me. Caden going out there, he'd have to kill that same amount. And everybody in here would have to kill that same amount to conquer. Overwhelming odds. Probably going to lose, right? They didn't. They actually conquered most of South America. How crazy is that? Why do you think that is? Because what Cortez did, he realized we're not going to make it. We're all going to die. He made his soldiers go out there to the ships they had came in on, and he made them burn them. There's no way back home. They have to fight now. Now I have to fight or I'm going to die. And what happens? You fight 5 times harder. You push 5 times further, more than 5 times, everything you have. And guess what? Over 500 soldiers was able to conquer almost the entire South America. I'm sure they had backups coming in, but they themselves had conquered most of South America. That's crazy because they had no way back. They couldn't turn back because they had burnt the ships the way across. That's why I thought of Elisha. What did he do? He didn't have no way to go back to his former life because he had severed that. As Christians, we have to do that very thing. Burn the ships, sever that. If you have an issue looking at things that you shouldn't be looking at on your devices, get a flip phone, get rid of this. Burn the ships. Don't let it come between you and God. I'm skipping on down because it's time to go. It was time for Elisha. It was time for him to have his last day of his former life and his first day of his new life. Are you living in your new life right now? Or are you still living in the former? Only you know that, I don't. The first step is always the longest and the hardest. After this, we're done. And you can't just take a step forward into the future. You also have to eliminate the possibility of moving backwards in the past, what's kept you down. You have to eliminate that. That's how you go after goals. That's how you break addictions. That's how you reconcile friendships. You leave the past in the past by burning the ships where there's no way back to it. If it's a relationship, get rid of it. If it's a substance, get rid of it. If it's something on your phone, get rid of the phone. It's not worth your soul. It's not worth your relationship with Jesus. Look at what he did with Elijah and the prophets of Baal. Look at what Elisha did when he stepped into that role. He knew he would have to be all in because of what that role consisted of. As a Christian, we have that same responsibility. We can't take it lightly. It's not some bumper sticker slogan that makes you feel good. Then you go get to do what you want to go do. You do what Jesus wants you to do. Burn the ships. Last thing, it's time to burn the ships and follow Jesus. That's the last point of tonight. It's time to burn the ships and follow Jesus. Y'all pray with me. Dear Heavenly Father, I thank you for tonight. Lord, I thank you for the youth and their attention that they gave me for the entire hour I was up here, 45 minutes. Lord, I know that's extraordinary for anyone, especially for young people. Lord, that they are listening and they're learning and growing, understanding what is required of them. Lord, to follow you, how important it is, how serious it is, to get rid of our past, to live in our new life and get rid of the former life. Lord, I pray that they would do that they would cut those ties, that they would burn those ships, That they would live the calling that you've called on their life like Elisha did in his, like Elijah did in his, like we should be doing in ours. Letting go of the past and marching forward into the future you've made for us, the purpose that we have and the calling you have. And we love you, thank you, and praise you in Jesus' name. Amen.